Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to be talking about the House of Creed, and we're going to be counting down from my collection worst to best. So Creed have got a lot in their lineup. They're all very different, not just from the line itself but just in terms of fragrances too. For the most part they are very unique. All the ones on this list are great. Like the last spot is still going to be really high up in terms of like how I actually like the fragrance compared to other ones in my collection. All the ones from Creed I'd probably say in like the kind of top half of my fragrance collection. So before we get on with this list, guys, remember, if you are new to the channel, please do not forget to drop a like on this video. It really helps out with the YouTube algorithm, really helps the channel grow. It helps me create more content and stuff like that. Also, please don't forget to subscribe as well. Okay, so the House of Creed, very controversial house. They've recently, over the last couple of years, I think sold out to I think it's called Caring or something like that. They were previously owned by BlackRock, which literally bought the company for $1 billion or something like that. Before that, it was obviously owned by, was it Olivia Creed, I think it was. So yeah, they've had a lot of kind of changes the last few years. All the new bottle designs seem to be kind of fairly basic. So the ones that I've got from House of Creed, in my opinion, the older, the better. That's kind of how I see it. Most other people may disagree, but in my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of the way that the brand is going. I'm not a fan of the new bottle styles, especially Original Santal and Original Vetiver. I really don't like it, in my opinion. So those two aren't in this list, and yeah, that's kind of my take on Creed. I did a video, it was actually my first ever fragrance video, where I talked about the House of Creed, where I probably wouldn't actually end up buying any of their fragrances. Turns out I've actually got, I think I've got 10 of the Creed lineup now. So yeah, a lot can change in a year. So without further ado, we are going to kick things off in the last place. And like I said, just because it's last place, it doesn't mean that I think it's a bad fragrance. It wouldn't be in my collection if it was a bad fragrance. Okay, so coming in at the last place, I don't actually have a bottle of this, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit here. I have got a sample, and I've tried it a few times, and I really don't know what to think about it. The stuff I just said about, you know, the direction of Creed, this was kind of like the final nail in the coffin for me for like, okay, the House of Creed is definitely changing. And the one that we are talking about, and it was one of the new releases. It's this one here. It's called Creed's, what is it? Centaurus. So I'll throw up the bottle here. The bottle looks kind of cool, and I've actually got it on my hand right now. And yeah, I don't really know what to think about it. Like it's something I've smelled before, definitely. It reminds me, just kind of off the top of my head, something that like Perfumes de Marly or something would bring out, or like it reminds me a little bit of Tommy Iommi Special Monkey by Xerjoff. Such a weird name, that fragrance. But it reminds me like a little bit of that, and then like a little bit of Leighton sort of vibe. Kind of warm and spicy, something that Creed have done before in the past. But yeah, this one, for me, it doesn't really excite me too much. It's quite a boring fragrance. I mean, I've worn it probably 2 or 3 times out in public. I've never had any reactions with it. Whenever I spray it, like I literally sprayed this about 10 minutes ago, and it's kind of already a skin scent. To me, I'm not the biggest fan of it. So yeah, coming in at the last place for me at this current time is Creed's Centaurus. I think one of their newest releases, which in my opinion isn't the best. Okay, next up, this one is the most recent bottle I have actually purchased in my collection, so I don't have too much experience with this in terms of wearing and stuff like that. A lot of people say that this is their favourite fragrance from the House of Creed, and I can definitely see why. Like this fragrance, it is very nice. There's quite a lot of depth to it, even though there's not a lot of fragrance notes in this. It develops really well, and it's a very mature fragrance. For me, even though I think I can pull it off, this suits someone a little bit older perhaps, and it's been beaten to death that this is Frank Sinatra's signature fragrance, and you probably know the one that I'm on about just whenever I say that. It's this one here, Creed's Bois de Portugal. Now this is a very lovely fragrance, very classy. It's got bergamot, it's got lavender, ambergris, sandalwood. It's got all the kind of signature notes that you get from Creed, and I really enjoy this. I love the lavender in here. It gives it like a kind of like old school barbershop feel, which I really enjoy. I really like those types of fragrances. Just for me, I've not had the best reactions from it. Probably because, you know, it has got that kind of like lavender smell, the kind of like something your granddad would wear. But if you've not tried this, just think, okay, like what what fragrance would my granddad wear? That's kind of probably what you get from this. It's very classy though. I love the dry down of this thing. I love the opening from the bergamot. You just get a really nice blast of the citrus, and then you just get the lavender there, which kind of calms it all out. The ambergris and everything like that, whenever you come to the base, is also very nice. It's a very sophisticated fragrance. I like to wear this to the office. I know a lot of people say you should probably wear it a little bit higher up than that, to like a special setting, to like an event. And yeah, I can see that, but for me, I just really enjoy this thing. Some people might not like it. It might not be your thing, but for me, I love it. The only problem with it though is, even though I do wear it to the office, it's quite hard to wear. If you've ever tried Xerjoff's Renaissance, I feel like this is like a darker sort of version to that, a kind of heavier version. I thought there was some similarities. Renaissance is a lot more lighter than this one, but it's still great fragrance, just a little bit too mature for me. So yeah, quite low down on the list, but for some people, this could be their number one. Bois de Portugal. Okay, next up, this one again is a sample, but I am actually, I'm considering getting a bottle of this because I actually do really, really enjoy it. And funny enough, my girlfriend really likes this one. The kind of DNA that this is based off of, she doesn't typically tend to like. She's like, "Oh no, you're not wearing that one again, are you?" And the one that we're talking about, this one though, she does like, by the way. It's Creed's Aventus Absolute. This is a little bit of a darker take on the Aventus DNA, which I think everyone knows by now. And yeah, they've just kind of done a really nice, like vanilla kind of sweetness depth to this thing that I really, really like. It kind of takes that Aventus DNA, keeps all the good parts with it, but then it also adds like this really nice, rich sweetness to it, which is just so, so nice. It works perfect for the winter time and for like going out settings and stuff like that. It does get compared to stuff like Sauvage Elixir. I can kind of see the comparisons. The reason why I don't have a bottle of this yet is also because of the price and the size that you get for it. So they put it in a 75ml bottle, which is what they used to do before, when they had the old 120 milliliter style bottles, which were so good in my opinion. And they also had the 75ml bottles, and that one came out in a 75ml, and it's also, I think, one of the most expensive Creeds that they currently have. So I haven't got a bottle of it just for the price, but I do really, really like the DNA of this thing. Just it's a shame that they released it as like a limited edition run and stuff like that, and the price. So good, but it's just a little bit too expensive. A bit like most of the Creed lineup, to be honest. But I really like this for winter, and my girlfriend seems to like it too, which is quite strange because she hates the normal Aventus. Okay, next up is a very safe one. It's probably the most boring from the House of Creed. It doesn't really push the boat. It's a very safe fragrance. It's very fresh and clean, but it has got a nice smokiness to it. The one that we are talking about is this one here. I really like the bottle design of this thing. It just reminds me of like a silver old Mercedes or something like that. Like a Mercedes SL 500, I think it's called, SL 50, something like that. I'll put a photo up on the screen of what I'm on about. For some reason it reminds me of that. And it's just a very, very safe fragrance. It reminds people, and I have tried it before, of Paco Rabanne's XS. There is a similarity, I think, from the gunpowder note that they use in this. Whenever I went to the Creed boutique and they were trying to sell me on what fragrance I should buy, I obviously didn't buy it at retail, but they were trying to tell me that this was inspired by a trip that Olivia Creed took up the mountains, and you've got the freshness from the ice and the snow. But then obviously, because they have to clear away all the snow and they use the gunpowder and the TNT, you would get the mix of the freshness, and also you would get the smokiness aspect. And that's kind of how they created this fragrance. So that's what the inspiration behind this was. Whether that's true, who knows? But this fragrance, yeah, like I said, it's just fresh and clean with a kind of nice fuzzy sort of smokiness to it. These kind of bright citrus notes in here, whilst also having that smokiness from the gunpowder. It's quite unique. Apart from Paco Rabanne XS, I've never smelt anything similar to this, but it's just so fresh and clean, you can't really dislike it. It's a perfect office fragrance. So yeah, next up is Himalaya. Unfortunately, it's just quite boring, in my opinion. Okay, next up on the list, I think this is the second to last sample that we've got. This is a fragrance I've had a lot of experience with. I've known about this fragrance for a very long time, and I'm surprised I haven't picked up a bottle yet. I think I am leaning more in the direction that I will eventually pick up a bottle of this thing. Just for now, I've got the sample. I've also got a clone that I have spoken quite a few times on the channel about. The one that we are talking about next up is Creed's Silver Mountain Water. I'm not sure if that's upside down. Is it upside down? It is. Silver Mountain Water. So Silver Mountain Water, in my opinion, is a more exciting Himalaya. So it takes that kind of Creed DNA, that kind of like, if you strip everything back, that's what you're left with Himalaya, like the ambergris, the kind of freshness, sandalwood. And then you just go crazy with the citruses and stuff like that. The top note of Silver Mountain Water is beautiful, by the way. This really nice kind of lemon lime sort of smell, fresh inkiness that you get from it. And it just has this refreshingness to it, which is just so, so nice. Silver Mountain Water, similar to what the name suggests, really. You've just got that kind of freshness to it. And the reason why I haven't got a bottle of this just yet is because I have got a clone, which is Armaf Sillage, which the Fragrance Apprentice did a really good review on, and it's what led me to actually buy this fragrance. And let me just smell from here. Yeah, it's just fresh and clean. Probably the freshest one, I'd say, like the freshest citrus. Maybe a little bit better than the number one on this list that we'll come on to talk about. But yeah, I really like the clone of it. I've never really kind of thought to get a bottle just because that clone's very good. But yeah, Silver Mountain Water, it's just a lot better in terms of quality than Sillage. It's got a really weird ink note, which is surprisingly quite nice. Really nice tea note in there. But what obviously makes this fragrance so good is it's just so easy to apply. You can just spray it on and you're just left with like a blast of citrus and freshness. It's a very, very good fragrance for that. From my experience, the performance isn't the the think kind of like the 2-hour mark is whenever it starts to really fade off. But a really nice one. And I don't really think you could dislike this. It gets really good reactions when people can smell it. Just for me, I've not bought a bottle of it, but the actual version of it is very, very good. So next up is Creed's Silver Mountain Water. Okay, next up, this one has dropped quite a lot recently, and it's quite sad because before, whenever Creed had this in the 120ml bottle, and whenever they had it in the clear bottle with the label on it, this thing was so good. It was actually my favourite fragrance for a very long time. Back whenever I was first getting into fragrances, I wanted to wear this fragrance and just sell everything else and have this one fragrance for the rest of my life. Only problem with that is obviously it's Creed and it was quite expensive at the time, so I didn't actually get around to buying a bottle until many, many years later, many reformulations afterwards. I think that they've had to stop using ambergris, and the kind of main note that was actually in this fragrance that made it so good, they had to get rid of it and substitute it for like an ambroxan or whatever. I don't know if they use real ambergris for it, but the one that we are talking about is this one here. The coolest bottle design of all time, in my opinion. Just this gold bottle. The one that we are talking about is Creed's Millésime Impérial, also known as the salty watermelon fragrance. And yeah, it's got this really nice melon note. It's got this sea breeze to it. It doesn't smell like anything I've ever smelled before, really. It's such a unique fragrance. I love the dry down of this thing. Problem with this recent bottle is it's just not got that saltiness. It's not got that kind of fresh sea breeze that you get. So a couple of years ago, and I was so hyped that they actually brought this out back then, Creed's Armaf's Milestone. This actually does a really good job of when it's in the air and you kind of like turn your head and you can smell the breeze, like the sea breeze I like to call it. The current batches of Millésime Impérial do not have that. They haven't got that kind of airiness to it that Milestone seems to replicate. The problem with Milestone though is it has got too much of like a red berry note, whereas Millésime Impérial, even the current batches, have still got that really nice melon, citrus, watermelon smell to it. I think it is good, but it has got this sort of like extra flowery notes in this that before I can't ever remember it having. I just remember this used to be in salty melon sea breeze, whereas now it's kind of like a flowery watermelon smell, like a creamy sandalwood in there. And it's still classy. You can still wear this for anything. It's very casual, but has got a sophistication to it too. I think you definitely could wear this with like a suit as well as wearing it with like, you know, swim shorts and stuff like that. Just reminds me of being like in the Caribbean or something like that. And yeah, super good fragrance. Just for me, it's gone so low on the list. I'm starting to like it less and less just because it just seems to have changed a little bit, which is a shame. The newer bottles do not stack up to how the old ones did. But yeah, super nice one. I still absolutely love it, don't get me wrong. Just it used to be so much better, which is why it's a little bit lower down on the list. So yeah, next up was Millésime Imperial. And yeah, amazing bottle design. Like, we just appreciate that. The gold, yeah, it's awesome. Okay, next up, probably my favourite winter Creed fragrance. One of the only winter Creed fragrances that are out there, to be honest. And it's this one, Royal Oud. So when people start to talk about Creed fragrances, and especially niche heads in the fragrance community, they will say that this is the best Creed fragrance. And I can definitely see where they're coming from. This thing has got one of the best the cedarwood notes that I know of. It just smells so classy, so sophisticated. This is just like Christmas time in a bottle, just perfect for cutting through the winter air. There's the way how the cedarwood and the pink pepper just work so well together with this kind of freshness at the top, and then it just layers perfectly with the cedar notes. And the other woody note, I think, is sandalwood or cinnamon. There's something in here. And of course, it's a Creed, so it's going to have that sandalwood note in there. So it's just super, super nice. Kind of spicy from the pink pepper note. It says it's got oud in here, but I mainly get, like I said, that woody cedar note. And they've just done such a good job with this. To me, this kind of paints the picture of being in like a log cabin in the middle of the forest, and it's just been snowing all around it. And you've just like, you're kind of close to fire and stuff like that. That's what this would remind me if it smells like it. Or I like to say it reminds me of being in like a kind of like mansion in like a library in the fireplace. Yeah, this is something that, you know, like a old money billionaire would wear in the winter time, that kind of thing. So it's a really nice one. It's super sophisticated, and it just reminds me of like a older person who's just like completed life, that sort of thing. So yeah, next up is Creed's Royal Oud. Absolutely love it for the winter time. And I like to wear this at the office. I like to wear it whenever it's cold. Outside, I'll wear this. But yeah, super good one. Just it's a shame because of that really warm woodiness to it. It's a shame you can't really get away with it in the summertime just because it might get a little bit too cloying. But winter, the perfect Creed fragrance for winter, in my opinion. Royal Oud. Okay, and next up, the final sample, I promise, is this one here. It's a little bit lower down the list. Some people, I think definitely a few years ago, would rate this as their number one fragrance. For some people, it is their number one fragrance. It's their signature scent. And it's a shame that with the fragrance community hyping this thing to death, that a lot of people know about it now. Same with like Sauvage. Like whenever it first came out, I was like one of the first people to wear Sauvage, and I would get like a million compliments. No one knew what I was wearing. And it was my signature scent for a while, Sauvage. And then, after everyone knew about Sauvage, I turned to this thing. And the one that we are talking about is Creed's Aventus, of course. Just the original one now. And I wore this, or I actually wore a clone of it, I'm not going to lie. I wore, where is it? The most popular clone, Club de Nuit Intense Man. I wore this as my signature scent. And the DNA of this thing has just been replicated so much. Mont Blanc Explorer, there's like so many different fragrances that are out there. Everyone who knows me is like the kind of fragrance guy. They ask me like, oh, if I can get them samples of Creed Aventus or give them a good clone for Creed Aventus. And it's a shame, really, because of how good this fragrance is, the popularity just like, you know, kind of tipped the scale, I think, a bit too much. Creed obviously saw that and they were like, okay, we can probably try and like reformulate it and change the notes a little bit. And I am convinced now that the recent batches of Creed's Aventus are nothing like how it used to be from my experience. I used to remember Creed Aventus when I would go into the department store and stuff like that. It would be this beautiful apple, pineapple, smoky birch. And now it's just this kind of like green foresty fragrance with like a little bit of musk in it. It just, in my opinion, it just doesn't smell the same. It's a great fragrance, don't get me wrong, but there's just so many people that wear it now that it's kind of like the success of it is also the death of it. And I've recently picked up a bottle of Club de Nuit Intense Man Parfum limited edition. This is definitely a better version of Club de Nuit Intense Man. And I think I compared, well, you can see how much I've actually used of this sample. I've used a lot of it. And I think most of the reasons why I've been wearing this is to sample it against this one and the other Club de Nuit Intense Man. And this thing does a very, very good job. I think there are better clones out there, but this is like 90 to 95% the same. But like the sillage of this thing, the scent trail that this thing leaves, the clone now, is making me not want to buy the actual Aventus. But obviously, this thing, the quality of it is still amazing. If I can find a good bottle for a good price, I most likely will pick it up. I'm going to obviously be looking for an older style batch because the new ones, I'm not the biggest fan of them. But you just can't beat Aventus, man. It is so good. And whenever this thing first came out, man, I am jealous of all the people that wore this whenever it first came out for like the next, I want to say 5 to 10 years afterwards. I'm so jealous of the people that managed to wear this as their signature scent and stuff before it got overhyped and stuff like that. So yeah, super jealous of that. But next up was Creed's Aventus, king of niche fragrances, obviously. Okay, next up on the list, this one may surprise you. It's another one I've picked up fairly recently, and I prefer this more than the last one on the list. And it's this one here, Aventus Cologne. So, Aventus Cologne, it's a little bit better, in my opinion, than the current batches of Aventus. I think with this thing being out on the market, I don't think there's much point in getting an original bottle of Aventus when you have this thing on the market. It performs very, very well. It's a more kind of freshened up DNA, and it's just a little bit more unique. So this is like if you were to mix Chanel's Allure Homme Sport and Aventus together, and it just takes the complement factor of the original Aventus and the complement factor of Chanel Allure Homme Sport, mash them together, make this DNA a lot more fresh, a lot more wearable for, well, even though Aventus is very, very versatile, it makes it even more versatile. And I just love the fresh apple, pineapple note in here, and like the other citruses that they use. It is a very, very nice fragrance. And my girlfriend absolutely loves this thing, whereas Aventus and Club de Nuit Intense Man, she really doesn't like, which is strange because DNA is fairly similar. So it's a really nice one. I'd recommend you pick up this compared to Aventus currently. And yeah, it's very good. There was a lot of controversy when this thing first came out, but I think with the test of time, the community and myself included seem to really, really enjoy this one. So next up is Creed's Aventus Cologne. Super nice one. And also, if you live in the UK, I am dying for a cap of this thing because I've been using Himalaya. I've been cheating this a little bit in videos. I've just been using the cap of Himalaya and just chucking it on this after I'm done talking about this one. I'm not sure where I got this cap from, but I've just been putting this on Aventus Cologne. It sticks out like a sore thumb in my collection. So if you have, by any chance, any Creed caps that you are looking to sell and you live in the UK, please reach out to me on Instagram or in the comments below because I am dying for a cap for that fragrance. Okay guys, and final 3 fragrances. All 3 of these ones are just absolute bangers. I will wear these like 2 days in a row, which is very, very rare for me because I've got over 84 fragrances at this point. And these ones I just absolutely love. Obviously Aventus and the ones that we talked about so far, like Millésime Impérial, they are very talked about. They're known in the community. They are people's favorites. But for me, in my opinion, these are the best 3 that Creed have ever released. From when they first started to now, these 3 are just absolute 10 out of 10 masterpieces. All 3 of them. The rest of them on this list have been like, 8s, 9s out of 10. These 3, hands down, in my opinion, are 10 out of 10 fragrances. First one we're going to talk about, and I love wearing this probably more than any fragrance. I just love how this thing smells and the way it performs on my skin. It's this one here, and I've actually considered buying a flacon, an actual bigger bottle of this, and just decant it and just spraying the life out of it. Creed's Viking. Oh my god, man, yeah. This thing is something special. I have considered wearing this as my signature scent. Like I said, getting a 250ml, and if for whatever reason I have to sell all my fragrances, I would honestly consider wearing this for the rest of my life. It's so versatile that you could probably wear it in any situation. You can see the color of the juice in here, the yellow. It's kind of behind the label, but yeah, man, this is such a good fragrance. Similar to Royal Oud, it has got that pink pepper note in here, but you've also got this, I think is it mint or peppermint? Yeah, it's a peppermint in here. So it's very spicy and kind of clean with that peppermint note in here, and also all the other citruses, but there is also this really nice kind of like masculineness to it. So I think the reason why they called it Viking was because you've got the freshness of like the citruses, but you've also got the fieriness of like the pink pepper and the spiciness in it, which I think is a really cool concept. Similar with, you know, like Vikings, where they come from the cold climates, and then they come over to like, you know, the UK and stuff like that, and start burning monasteries with the fire. So quite a funny pick for the name and the style of it. It got a lot of hate in the community because if you look at the bottle design, this is the only other Creed fragrance. I have actually got a bottle of it. You can see with Aventus Cologne, this is going to be the same as actual Aventus, but they're the same style with the labels. And Creed really hyped this thing up as the kind of successor to Aventus, and I can see why they said that, because if you think about Aventus, it's a very kind of timeless, manly, you know, musky smell. And it's like, whenever you think of like what a man smells like, Aventus, yeah, it could come into your head with that. Like you smell it and it's like, okay, that is, you know, the quintessential manly fragrance, and why it did so well. And I think they brought this out to kind of try and replicate that. It has got the kind of Old Spice, something that your dad would wear from like his fragrance cupboard. And I think that's kind of what their thinking behind this was that they're going to bring it out and it's going to be a kind of timeless, manly smell. And I think it is. And I love the way this thing smells. It's just a shame that when this first came out, people really, really hated on it. And it just, yeah, people were afraid to say how good this thing smells. The only other fragrance that I can think of that gives me this reaction when I smell it is Amouage's Imitation. And funny enough, both of these fragrances have got a really nice rose note in them too. So yeah, I love this thing. I love wearing it. So coming in at the number 3 spot, super spicy, smells a little bit like Old Spice, something your dad will wear, is Creed's Viking. Coming in at the number 2 spot, one of the oldest ones, apart from Bois de Portugal that we talked about at the start of this video. They came out fairly similar times, back in the 1980s. And this fragrance at the number 2 spot, I think, is, if Aventus is the king of niche fragrances, this thing should be the prince, because super cool stealthy bottle design, Creed's Green Irish Tweed. Yeah, smelling this, it's so green, it's so fresh. It just smells a little bit like cool water, which is the only problem I've got with this thing. There's been a few times I've sprayed this and people have said, you know, it smells like cool water and stuff like that, which is annoying because this fragrance is a million times better than cool water, in my opinion. It goes more in like a green kind of freshly cut grass kind of style, whereas Davidoff Cool Water goes more in the cool marine watery smells. So this thing, man, this thing is good. You can wear this to any occasion, any season. Probably the most versatile fragrance I think I own. I know I can just spray this at any point and it will work well. Really unique bottle design. I always like to say that this is, if you go to like the Creed boutique, and this is kind of dressed in all black, it's discreet, it's kind of in the back, and it's kind of like if you know what this fragrance is, you'll pick it up and you'll go for it straight away. Whereas when you've got stuff like Mercium Imperial, a gold bottle, you're more intrigued to pick this up rather than this all black bottle that's hiding in the back. According to the Creed website, this is a very, very simple note breakdown. You've got the lemon verbena, you've got the iris, violet leaf, and then the beautiful base notes of this thing, the ambergris and the sandalwood, the kind of Creed signature, if you will. And yeah, it just gives it this really bright freshness from that lemon verbena. Probably the main note in this thing is just magic in a bottle. I absolutely love this. I would happily, maybe with the exception of Viking, without a doubt, I would probably consider getting rid of all my other fragrances and just wearing this as my signature. I think this was Clint Eastwood's signature fragrance, which is quite a cool thing. Super, super manly. I can just imagine people, like when this first came out in 1980s, people on like Wall Street that, you know, going out with their like crazy suits and stuff like that. People would go over to Europe and like pick this up and take it back in the old style bottles and just spray the life out of this thing before cool water came out. And it's just such a unique fragrance back in the day. So yeah, coming in at the number 2 spot, super fresh and clean, like freshly cut grass almost, is Creed's Green Irish Tweed. Okay, and coming in at the number 1 spot, this is, in my opinion, the greatest Creed fragrance that they've brought out. It's such an unsung hero. I absolutely love how this thing smells, how it kind of transports me to like a yacht in the Mediterranean. Probably the best fresh Creed fragrance, probably one of the best citrus fragrances on the market, in my opinion. I love the citruses of this thing. They just work so well. This fragrance, the top note, has my favorite smell, I think, of all time, and that is a freshly cut lime. So if you ever have like a cocktail, or like if you're cutting them up for, I don't know, for like a recipe or whatever, and you've got lime and you've got like the lime juice and you rub it in your hands and you smell it, that is my favorite smell ever. And it reminds me a little bit of this fragrance. Number 1 spot, Creed's Arolfa. What a fragrance, man. I'm just going to smell it quick because I always get the same reaction every time I smell it. Yeah, it's something powerful, man. There's something about this fragrance. It's so classy, so casual, but also similar to stuff like Millésime Imperial. You can wear it in a suit setting, and I've actually classed this on Fragrantica as my signature scent. There is a lot of notes listed on this thing, and you can see just how much I've worn of this fragrance. I've not decanted it, and yeah, I don't know, I just really relate to this fragrance where it's just kind of in the background, but it's still there and still kind of doing its thing. Not too worried about, you know, all the other noise of like Aventus and stuff like that. It's just kind of its own thing, and the people that know about it know it's a good fragrance. So yeah, I absolutely love this fragrance, man. It just reminds me of being in like a really nice sunny place like the Amalfi Coast or something, and you've just got the fresh sea breeze. The main 2 notes that I get from this thing are, like I said, that lime, that crisp, fresh lime, and also the ambergris note in here. So that gives it the saltiness. So you've got this beautiful, fresh sea breeze with all the citruses. There's also a really nice melon note in here, and I think it's cantaloupe or something. And you've also got this bergamot in here, which again is a beautiful, fresh, almost lime sort of smell. The citrus in it, the salty sea breeze to it is just amazing. Whenever I first actually smelled this fragrance in the Creed boutique, I absolutely hated it. I thought it smelled like wee. So I think that's what turns people off, is feel like the amateur knows when you're first smelling it and you come from like the designer realm, like you've just smelled like Sauvage, you've just smelled like Paco Rabanne and stuff. I don't think you'd like this. But when you let your nose develop, this thing can become an amazing fragrance. Smelling this in the air, I actually sprayed this on my friend and I was like walking behind him. Man, this thing is good. It's so fresh. It's got like a kind of like sort of shaving gel sort of smell, like a fresh, just kind of out of the shower sort of thing. It just smells like a fresh, clean man, basically, which sounds quite strange, but yeah, perfect fragrance in my opinion for a signature scent. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. I know that Antonio from Real Men, Real Style also loves that fragrance. It's also his number 1. And I don't know, it's just a special fragrance to me. So yeah, coming at number 1 spot, my favourite Creed fragrance is Creed's Arolfa. And actually, I'm going to show you this as a little bonus. I wasn't actually going to include this in the video because I've already shown one of the newer bottles, which I can't see the batch note of it because it's rubbed off because I've moved this around so much. Also, there's a little crack in it at the bottom. Luckily, all the juice in there and the bottle's still fine, but there is a small crack in it, which is quite scary. If I drop this again, it's game over. So yeah, I thought just in case, and because I saw it come up on one of the Facebook groups for quite a cheap price, I saw this, an older style bottle. So this isn't one of the oldest ones out there. It's got the kind of velvet labels on it, the ones that fade away. And this smells even better, in my opinion, than this newer formulation. So they still smell good. This one just has a little bit more of that salty, creamy ambergris to it. Yeah, it's just a little bit more smoothed out, which is a little bit strange. So it just kind of, sort of, in my opinion, proves my theory of you know, the older Creed fragrances that you get are better than the newer ones, but they're still both great. So yeah, guys, Creed Rolfer, #1 spot, my favorite Creed fragrance. Super cool. And I really miss the old caps. Super cool. So yeah, an older style bottle. This was before they were actually taken over by BlackRock, I think. This is a 17 or 18 batch. Right, okay, so guys, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for sticking around to this point. If you did, then please do not forget to drop a like on this video. Please don't forget to comment down below saying what your favourite Creed fragrance is, if you've tried any of the Creed fragrances. Let me know down in the comments below. It shows me that you've watched up to this point. Also, you know, maybe comment just saying that you've actually made it to the end of the video. I'll pin one of the comments for someone that said they watched to this point. So yeah, guys, let me know down in the comments what your favourite Creed fragrances are. Let me know, you know, what your thoughts of the way that Creed's going. I mean, I've kind of voiced my opinion. Remember, guys, if you want to be part of this fragrance community, please don't forget to subscribe as well. I have got a Facebook group, which is linked down in the description. There is also some decants available. I do decant some of these fragrances. There's a link for that in the description below. And final plug is if you guys want to learn how to decant your fragrances yourself and grow a huge fragrance collection. Like I said, 1 year ago, I didn't think I'd have any Creed fragrances. I've now ended up having over 10 bottles, which is probably either a problem or it's a good thing. If you want to know how to do that without spending any of your money, there's a link down below to my fragrance decanting course. Sorry guys, my camera cut out me. So yeah, if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, then there is a link down in the description below. I think I've talked about these fragrances now for like the last 40 to 50 minutes. Thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.